Good day, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. We got something we want to show you here. I did a video the other day and I told people to go ahead and feel free to look that name up on the local Iowa courts online and check out the record and kind of help verify what I'm doing as a process is just not paying attention to them, ignoring what they're doing, and letting that record sit and correcting my own self and not poking the bear. And what happened is, just like I tell people, I check with the Treasury in regards to the offset program every 6 months, and I check with the local county commissioner every 6 months to make sure that they don't have me on a voter registration, because I've never voted, never registered to vote, and sometimes people like to include people on register votes, voting registrations, so they can then include them in other things. Well, like I said, every 6 months I call up Treasury Offset and verify that there's no debts, public or private, and every 6 months I call up the local county commissioner, and about every 6 months I'll check that record. Well, like I said, it's been about 6 months since I did any of that. And so the other day after I posted that video and told people to check the record, I went and checked myself. And it was, I can't say upsetting or anything. That's not something that upsets me anymore. But it certainly was a surprise when I got on there and found a bench warrant issued. They tried to issue a jury summons evidently back in December, and then issued a warrant a couple weeks later based on nothing. Because I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you this warrant. I'm going to show you how they came up with a bench warrant based on absolutely nothing and still posted it, despite knowing that obviously all you got to do is look at the record. There's 93 cases in 33 years, and all of a sudden nothing for 6 years. Nothing for 6 years after 93 cases, meaning there's a case every 2, 3, 4 months being posted to that record. That means I was in and out of those courts at least once or twice every month for 33 years. And this is why people evidently think I don't have enough experience and I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm not putting any documentation in. So obviously I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm not correcting that record yet or filing things in their documents to fight them. I'm not in it for a fight. Okay? I'm in it to prove the delusional bullshit that sits on that record. And like I've said many times, 98% of the people are paying taxes voluntarily. And if by reason and logic that record exists the same manner, then 98% of that record is false. You're entering the data into that record voluntarily, just like you're doing the taxes voluntarily. If you don't want anything to do with that record, then quit entering shit. Because I'll tell you something about that selective service. In case you didn't know, that selective service is a contracting office warrant. See, when you become 18 and you take upon that selective service number, guys, that's called a contracting officer. You took upon a selective service. And as a contracting officer, you can contract through the military, or you can contact through the civilian service. But either way, you're part of that service. national and community service. And it's all volunteer. And you don't have to do it. The only reason you're required to sign up, in fact, for selective service, guys, is if you intend on using Title IV and the health education agencies. It's the only reason you're required to sign up for selective service. So let's take a look at this bench warrant that they issued. And like I said, folks, all you got to do is go to Iowa Courts Online. And you should be able to do this in any state. Just go to your state courts, and they should have an online. They're doing everything electronic now. So you should be able to find your state's courts electronic records. And generally, they're going to have some way that you can search the cases. Now, this one here, it starts out on the main, it says online search. Start a case search here. You click on this one, and it opens another window that gives you several search options. You can go to appellate case search, advanced case search, trial court case search, payment search, advanced case search, and schedule search. So you could take like a case number. If you've got a docket number, you could put it in there. And then, as I showed in previous videos, when you go to Iowa Courts Online, under the name search, it shows you. Let me blow this up so you guys can see this really good. That says last / firm. And that's how they do it. Right there. When you give them a last name on this side, on the other side of the counter, they substitute it. That little / that means you can substitute. And so when you put the last name down, they convert it to a firm name, which is a corporate entity. And then that Social Security number, they convert that to a obligor number. Okay. So when we enter the last name little, and you can see I've looked on this search before, and so it automatically fills it in for me now. But you can do LITT. But this isn't going to matter on this record. It doesn't matter if you put in LITTLE or LITT. It's still going to come up the same record. Wait a minute. It didn't pull anything up. Let's do this again. LITT. Keith. Let's do... See, these are all the parties that you can play. These are all the different parties you can play different positions in the Iowa courts. We're going to put down obligor. That's the one that goes with LITT as the firm name. So let's see what this does. Look. Now when you put in obligor, like I said, this one comes up with Keith Robert Little and Keith Orland Little. Keith Robert Little is not me. But when you put in Keith, LITT with obligor, it comes up with the marriage dissolution. And notice it says Keith Little, and then Little Keith Orland. And there it says Obliger. Now, this is the only case on the record, on this side of the record, as I showed you, with the last name that actually comes across as Firm and Obliger. But when we do a regular case search on just Little with the full name and the first name and all positions, it comes up with all those 93 cases. Now you're going to see down here, we didn't exclude Keith, Robert, and all those others by putting in a middle name. So we've got Keith R., Keith Cornell, Keith Antoine. So there's more than just one Keith Little, guys. Okay? This is Keith William, Keith Robert, Keith Edmund, Keith M. So we have to realize that when we're doing these things and we're committing to that name, the name is a big issue, folks. The name is what allows them to enumerate things in their records. So let's take a look. Like I said, 93 of these cases are what is posed on the record according to myself. It's this living man is the one they're trying to come after. And like I said, there hasn't been anything on this record since 2016, 8/24 of 2016. That's been 5.5 years, over 5.5 years now, almost 6 years, nothing. And then all of a sudden, 12/21 of 2021, some dumb bitch, and that's literally her name in my heart, my mind and heart said is some dumb bitch. Because this some dumb bitch, if she would have looked at this record, would have known something's up. So let's take a look at this some dumb bitch. Some dumb bitch posed in the matter of the jury service of Keith Little in Blackhawk County on 12/21/2021, and it says they looked. This dumb bitch looked and said no disposition records were found. Meaning, there is no disposition. I am position. You cannot disposition. Okay? No dispositions were found. That means standing is established. And there is no disposition. Okay. Disposition status, disposition date, reopen date, microfilm, no dispositions. So what is this? Originating county, and when it was created, title, the case number. But look at this. We go to summary. No dispositions found. Exhibits. You got to log in to see any exhibits, which I imagine there aren't any exhibits. Parties, you got to log in. So I imagine there's no parties. Financial, check this out. Check this out. 0. Everything is 0. Costs, fine, surcharge, restitution, other, support alimony, zeros. Look at this. Long title. No long title found. There's no long title. There's no disposition. There's no charges, no surcharges, no fines, fees, no alimony, no nothing. Look at this. Watch this, guys. It says bonds. No bonds. Okay. So far, this entire record has nothing but a case number and a title. Okay? Now this says no bonds. Right on the record it says no bonds, But when you go to filings, watch this. Now all of a sudden we have a bond, jury contempt, in order to show cause, somehow saying that they tried to serve me and it was a return of service, delinquent search or diligent search. So they did a search but could not find Keith Little. So they could not summon him for jury duty. So instead, because of their failure to locate, they are posing that Keith Little failed to show up for jury duty. That because they failed to communicate with him, then it became his failure. Okay? First and foremost, realize that. They have to communicate with you to summon you to jury. If they fail in that communication, then they turn around and place it on you as if though you failed to appear. That's totally wrong, folks. That is not how it works. If I'm out in the forest and I go around and I'm calling for my partner and I can't find my partner, do I just dismiss everything and blame it on them? See, if it's a cooperation, we have to cooperate together. If it's not part of the cooperation, if I'm not part of their organization and they send out a little text code or a little serviceman in his funny uniform, whether it be a postal uniform or a police uniform or some guy with a nice warrant in his pocket, I don't give a fuck. I really don't give a fuck. Okay? Because this is how delusional their system works. Period. Let me show you this again. No bonds found. Yet, they filed a bond set at $350 on the face of the document. Now, this is a Dreyer Andrea. Notice, that is a last name and then a first name. That's a contract name. This is a contract officer that never entered the selective service. The dumb bitch. Okay? So let's take a look at what we wrote up. Mayday, 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 an international call for aid. Epoch number. Attention. District Court Judge, District 1B, Judicial Title, Iowa Judicial Branch. Andrea J. Dreyer. Now, I couldn't find her middle name. I could do some more search and find that full middle name, and I could put it in there. But I just wanted her to know I know the difference between Andrea Dreyer and Dreyer Andrea in all caps. As filed, order to issue public bench warrant. Now, what I want to ask this Andrea is, Andrea, if you didn't find Keith Little, Andrea, have you ever met Keith Little? Andrea, can you identify Keith Little? And Andrea, if you try to identify Keith Little, do you have to place an enumeration with the name Keith Little in order to identify him? Or can you identify him in physical form only, with no address and no enumeration? No. The dumb bitch can't do that. Just like I can't identify this dumb bitch, except by this, which is a enumerated record. The name and number, folks, identify the record. It does not identify me. Because, in fact, like I said earlier, if they were searching for Keith Little and had to send a summons out, and they had the proper name and number, then they're obviously looking in the wrong place. Because if they're looking for Keith Little, and they go looking for, which is an identification, and they go looking for the living man who doesn't have any such number, then by hauling Keith Little into their courts without a number physically attached to that Keith Little, it does not match the Keith Little with the number attached in their record. This is plain logic. So the ADA coordinator got a notice as well, Lena Height, ADA being the Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator. And though I am not qualified as disabled in their system, I am in fact disabled from their system. Okay? So if they want to communicate with me, they have to communicate through this one right here. That's why this one doesn't have a email. I don't care to communicate with them. I'm communicating with this one right here, and they're going to communicate with Judge Andrea Dreyer and Brian Williams at the local county, who is co-trustee of the estates of decedents that they lodged the warrant against. Now, what I want to point out is they issued without a citation. There was no long title. There was a citation. There was a case number, but no citation. So they issued without a citation, for which then to show cause. So how can anybody show cause? They placed an impossibility on the record for anyone to show cause for which there is no citation. None. Dumb bitch. The title in the matter of the jury service of Keith Little. Notice, case number, Blackhawk, citation number, and there's nothing. This classification, not prima facie. Certainly deceptive on its face, without a proper Office of Management and Budget number. Okay, what I want to point out, like I said, they said there's no bond, yet they placed a bond, and then they did so with the court case number without a citation number. This, folks, is fraud on its face. I challenge any attorney to prove otherwise. I challenge any judge, any law scholar, anyone in this world to prove otherwise that this is not fraud on the face of this instrument, this document, in their public record. Andrea Dreyer, you dumb bitch. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. From the Journal of Keith Orland Little, FBU, issued by Keith, the Redeemed, I am his. We are sent in peace. We shall grant a redemption. See, folks, when it comes to their courts, they can penalize each other all they want, because that's what their system is for. It's for tattling on each other. Me? When I come across problems with this, I seek counsel with my Father which art in heaven, and I grant Andrea Dreyer and all parties involved hereby a redemption of forgiveness. I will speak up against any word that would try to prosper against me or my brothers, and I will condemn all that make any judgment against me or them. And our righteousness is that of our Lord Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray, not your defamation. Keith is the flesh and blood image and likeness of Jesus Christ, who is surety for the manual motivator of the living soul, with a prior spiritual guidance to walk with him solely. Made in good faith, with considerable conscience and thought and observance, and in seeking providence of our Creator's grace. Rigor juris, strictly law. This original literary work of our declaration in opinion is not transmitted through the mails of the United States, but delivered through the post office and or its routing systems consisting of the World Wide Web and all others. Non-domestic and without the United States. No letters of incorporation recorded or filed or registered, proving that I am not part of their public trust. I don't give a fuck about your public trust. Again, like I said, selective service, guys. When you signed up for a selective service, you signed up because it was presumed that you felt you were entitled to Title IV and higher education access. Produced with the following, and my apologies, I said the health education earlier. It's higher education, because once you graduate from high school, you're supposed to receive a higher education. So they send you to college to indoctrinate you deeper instead of sending you to your Father which art in heaven to get that said higher education. So, produced with the following, and hereby adopted for ratification and enforcement if needed. UPU, Universal Postal Union, disclaimer and copyright. This is a unique little instrument right here, guys. I've been telling you about adopting all along.
Do you have any glue?
This is all I got.
That works perfect.
As far as the disclaimer and copyright, everything I have found comes from the Postal Union. All literature and artistic works are protected by the Treaty of Berne and the Law of Nations, and that indenture is the Constitution of Universal Postal Union, which incorporates all of the Navy forces of all the nations that are signed up for that document. So, the UPU disclaimer and copyright is what I found to be satisfying for using and justifying all sources within their public domain, known as the Union, and only known to be a territory in fact and not in nature. Very specific writing, folks. Gotta wash things first. Excuse me for the interruption. So let's get on to the disclaimer. We start out with the disclaimer. And I'm not going to read this, guys, because this is going to be posted. I'm going to post this. This is my notice that I sent out to him, and I'm going to post this notice on Facebook. I'm going to post it on my site, which I've already posted the International Lord's Release. You'll notice I called this I guess I didn't title it here, but on my main document I titled it the Lord's Release, because that's what it is. 7 years is an automatic release by the Lord, and that's what they base their entire bankruptcy system on. That's what they base their entire lost at sea for 7 years. If you don't come back from sea for 7 years, then they give you a Lord's release. It's called bankruptcy. They release everything, all debts, while in the meantime all assets are returned to the family. Okay? That's a Lord's release. So I won't read all that, but I will continue reading here. As we support and adopt the notices in ministry and unity of freedom of the transit pursuant to the 1611 version of the King James Version of the Bible at Psalms chapter 121, in verse 8, wherein it states, "The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore." A Global Postal Service Trust. We hereby contest the record and the process of issuance of said failure to appear. First and foremost, we require the issuer of said bench warrant for said judicial amount of $350 to prove the validity of personal jurisdiction being obtained first. See, you have to, in order to issue any warrant, you have to be able to go get that person. You have to be able to have their jurisdiction first. They have to have appeared in your court as a defendant voluntarily first, in order for you to then be able to serve them on that case. Okay? So what happens is, being obtained first by the plaintiff needs to serve the defendant in the state in which the court sits. Since they could not serve the defendant, could not find him, they could not move to the second part, which is then to have the defendant appear. Okay? If they cannot serve, then they cannot move. Period. To go around saying that you tried to serve but couldn't, so you have to go out and physically kidnap them and harm them to bring them into your fucked up, 98% wrong and implicitly presumed jurisdiction is, in fact, kidnapping. Do not mistake it. If any of these people come after me, Andrea Dreyer, you, bitch, will be charged with kidnapping in the international forum. Do not mistake it. You issued this. The Iowa State District Court in and for Black Hawk County, and the defendant needs to voluntarily appear in court. This is a requisite. Not a prerequisite, a requisite, meaning it is required. And like I said, I have no letters of incorporation recorded or filed or registered. I am not a service member of your courts contracting as a warrant officer. Not in fact chartered, not appropriate for eventual entry into the National Archives. No voter registration on record. Cannot in fact invest in the court register investment system. Second, and most certainly equally as important, is the fact that we are not a resident nor a United States citizen as those terms are defined. We do not give consent to communicate about any supposed debt obligations. Congress did not lay such duty upon Keith Little. The record your court is posing has already shown a conversion of the last name to a firm name and a conversion of a social security number to an obligor number. These are in fact data elements we were not aware of nor fully knowledgeable of the conversion and its effects. Once we researched and got that knowledge, we repented for our errors in admissions to those records and asked forgiveness for our accidents as we forgive all mistakes. Andrea Dreyer, you dumb bitch, I am forgiving you. If those men come at me, you will be charged. I forgive you, but you will be charged. And it will then be up to them on whether to follow through with those charges. The birth registration and subsequent records will show errors which require correction and declassifications, mandatory and automatic. This is a must according to your own military schedules, period. Forced servitude is not had. It is impossible for us to hold a public duty. We are not qualified to place or allowed to be placed a liability upon the public record. That determination seems to be yours. So Andrea Dreyer, if you want to place that public liability on the record and then place the liability on me, you are a dumb bitch. We give notice of Articles 10, 15, and 139 of the Libra Code specifically and not exclusively. Martial law affects chiefly the police and the collection of public revenue and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader, and refers mainly to the support of the efficiency of the Army, its safety, and the safety of its operations. Again, I am not part of your service. Military necessity admits of all direct destruction of life or limb of armed enemies. I am not armed, I am not an enemy. And other persons whose destruction is incidentally unavoidable in the armed contests of war. Armed contests of war. Andrea, you do not have a weapon, I don't suppose, and yet you're sending armed men out to kidnap and possibly kill or harm, direct destruction of life or limb of somebody else who is unarmed. You dumb bitch! And it is hereby avoidable. It is hereby void. You have zero authority. You, Andrea Dreyer, the dumb bitch, are void. It allows for the capturing of every armed enemy and every enemy of importance to the hostile government. If you are thinking I am important and need to come get me as an enemy, then you prove to be the hostile government. By the very construct of the language posed, or of peculiar danger to the captor, you are either a hostile government or I am a peculiar danger to you, Andrea. And like I said, you can't even identify me, you dumb bitch. It allows for all destruction of property. Really. I want to point something out to you people here. Our Creator created everything there is. And by posing that anybody has the authority to destroy any property is a violation of that word alone. Therefore, anybody posing any kind of war where they can go in and destroy somebody else's property is in fact the devil himself. Andrea Dreyer, I hope you take a good look in the mirror, you dumb bitch. And obstruction of the ways and channels of traffic, travel, or communication, and of all withholding of sustenance or means of life from the enemy. And now all of a sudden they say enemy without putting armed in there. Again, going against the entire inherent nature of love thy neighbor as thyself. Of the appropriation of whatever an enemy's country affords necessary for the subsistence and safety of the army. And of such deception as does not involve the breaking of good faith, either positively charged regarding agreements entered into during the war or supposed by the modern law of war to exist. Okay, regarding agreements entered into during the war. Contract officers entering in agreements. I guarantee you that's what you're doing. You're entering into what's known as a war. And those forms that they use are known as Battle of the Forms. Men who take up arms against one another in public war do not cease on this account to be moral beings, responsible to one another and to God. You blasphemous motherfuckers. An armistice is binding upon the belligerents from the day of the agreed commencement. Excuse me, before we get on to the next part about from the responsible officers of the... But the officers of the armies are responsible from the day only when they receive official information of its existence. Did none of you read the Bible and the existence of the Lord's Prayer and the armistice therein, wherein they get this armistice? Are you not aware of the prior armistice? Have you entered into a war because somebody else told you to without reading the armistice that was already written in your heart? Are you just trying to blaze trails of idiocy? Do you not recognize the armistice in your own heart that says you're supposed to go out and love thy neighbor as thyself? And yet, you so willingly put on that gun and pepper spray and taser and go out thinking that is your armor so that you can blatantly and wantonly just destroy somebody else's life and then go home to your own family and kneel down beside your bed and pray to your Father in heaven. Is that what this is about? Or are you the one that's truly deceived? Andrea Dreyer, you dumb bitch. Flag of convenience, flag state. You're the one in a flag state. I am a state of spirituality. I need no flag to express that. I need no words to express that. And in the words, I don't need to write them down. Actions speak louder than words. We have never truly been in conflict, but rather just not clarifying things appropriately. We have not been communicating with each other appropriately. Andrea Dreyer, I suggest next time you want to put some stupid shit on your record so that somebody can come with guns and armaments to come pick me up as if though you have some kind of authority without being able to identify me. You better think twice about that next time, you stupid bitch. We require full acquittance and discharge pursuant to directives to correct those records in interest of the United States to be conveyed to, on, and for the account of the United States, found at 50 U.S.C. 4305b2, so that no person shall be held liable in any court. A Lord's release is a release of all, making all whole. We come in peace. We are in peace. We will pass in peace, despite the language I use. Give us this day our daily bread, for a little leaven leaveneth the whole loaf. And I want people to remember when it says or speaks about Jesus going into the temple and flipping the tables. He did so for a reason. He did so because he had cause. I speak the way I do today because I have cause. One is either a child of God or member of the cult of personality. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. We ask only providence of your grace, granted with patent intent to prove the law and not to destroy your law. Reverently, Chaplain Keith. Exhibit found in the public domain and evidence of posting is patent. And that's the exhibit that I just showed, which is the filings where they say there's no bond. And yet, it posts a $350 bond is set. Exhibit 2, text, or Exhibit 1 is the text of that. Exhibit 2, found in our possession and proving said errors, source of all mark as O, in the set of parentheses. That is found in the Government Publishing Office Styles Manual and is known as an Allmark. Section 2.1, Government Publishing Office Style Manual, Section 2.1, and others, a full financial index, which we would like expunged in the interest of all parties involved. This is a mandatory and automatic declassification, as the record must reflect accurately and would most certainly deserve the property recording before being filed in the Federal Register, National Archives. See, if they're going to enter this information into the National Archives, it's their responsibility to make sure that information is correct, because I am not part of their association. However, since they pose to be sending armed military men after me, I have to make a declaration of peace so that they can recognize it now, because evidently they don't understand the armistice of peace in the Lord's Prayer. Evidently they've never heard that one. Evidently they don't know that that's congruent with the Treaty of Peace. Evidently they don't understand concise English. So we're going to help them out. The clerk of court has these documents, and if need be, can be acquired within, or we can provide valid documental copies that can be traced according to the electronic record via the book entries. In other words, if they want to claim they don't have those documents, we have one that we got from them. And the numbers on there will show that we got it from their electronic record. So they can't claim they don't have them or can't find them. They're there. We found them. We got them from them, both in the electronic form and in print form, physically, hand to hand, over the counter. Exhibit 3. Declaration of supplemental cause and true nature by query and opinion and reason. This is an international incident. Maybe that is why there is no citation. Incident, citation. They don't want to recognize the international forum. We are not sure, but it is certain it fails to cite anything. Certainly nothing more than a presumption of facts before the court and already known as a legal fiction. Please take heed, as we are already presumed a private foundation and in the progressive nature of making corrections as mentioned. Our journalese will reflect this. Your record will also reflect failure of minimum contacts, and this is actually why you have failed to serve as stated, and now are pleading with a court to grant that which cannot be granted. Rule 12 of Federal Rules of Civil Procedure in whole, not just 12b. Not only have you filed a claim upon which relief can't be granted, but you have no personal jurisdiction. You have no subject matter jurisdiction. You have no territorial jurisdiction. In fact, Andrea Dreyer, you proved yourself to be a babbling idiot and shouldn't even have technically been allowed to place that information on the record. You dumb bitch. And Rule 17, plaintiff and defendant capacity, public officers. Gee, Andrea Dreyer, as a public officer, looking for another public officer and not being able to find that public officer, you issue a bench warrant instead of giving that other public officer 7 years to appear so that you could give him a release or maybe give his property back to his family. See, in their military jurisdiction, if somebody goes missing and they're missing for 7 years, goodness gracious, it's lost at sea. And if they're presumed to be lost at sea from the start, do they issue a warrant? No, they wait till that 7 years comes up. So why is it that if they can't get a hold of somebody, instead of presuming them lost at sea, they issue a bench warrant? Huh? Why is that? See, I ask these questions for a reason, people. To me, none of this sounds like it makes a bit of fucking sense. Not one bit. Rule 19, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, joinder. And that's why I put in the interest of the United States. See, at a state level, they don't want to put a citation. They don't want to claim it as an international citation. They don't want to claim it as a national citation. They don't want to claim it as a citation. They don't want to claim it under a title. So the dumb bitch put her own title up there as a military contract officer without a selective service number. Dumb bitch. Keith Little is not a public officer nor an agent thereof. Keith does not qualify for residency, citizenship, office, or otherwise of public duties. Keith is not organized and consisting of a charter and board of directors for which to hire an attorney for presentation or representation in those courts. Attorneys, therefore, have no authority to bring judgment quid quo pro, particularly as third-party interveners. King James Version of the Bible, Romans 13, 1 through 20. I suggest everybody read that. And again, remember, when they post something that says no bond and then they post a bond, who's babbling? And they did send a copy to the Blackhawk County Sheriff's Service to serve. And now that there's a bench warrant out, I'm sure that bench warrant might be issued. Comments. Failure to appear for duty. Juty. They can't even spell. Failure to appear, and you're not supposed to use abbreviations. So they didn't spell it out. What's FTA? Final Testing Authority? I don't know. You'll have to explain that to me if you can get me back in those courts. If you can get me back in those courts, you dumb bitch. See what they failed to realize, people. In that last case, they filed a protection order. That protection order is given full faith and credit. Now, if a protection order is given full faith and credit, how come that record hasn't been expunged yet? If the protection order is given full faith and credit, how come they turned around and issued a bench warrant? If the protection order is given full faith and credit, how come they issued a summons to look for that guy who was under full faith and credit? If a protection order is given and it's given full faith and credit, how come they don't recognize Keith Little as the protected entity? I ask these questions because it defeats their entire record. It's pure plain logic and reason. So I hope everybody pays attention today. I'm going to post this as a new video on my page. I'm going to post my PayPal link, and I think my page is done. I've got some work to do. I'm going to post my Lord's release after the video. Y'all can have fun reading it. And I've already sent it out. I sent this notice to the ADA, Lena Height, and Brian Williams at the local county district attorney's office. So they got this, and they should be able to pass this on to Andrea Dreyer, who put that notice on their record. You know, it's their record. And Andrea Dreyer's from the judicial branch down in Cedar Rapids, or down in Des Moines. And she got a notice that somebody didn't appear for jury duties, or she might be the judicial officer down at this court. I don't know. I haven't found her down at the local court. But, so now you have this notice, and I'll post this one as well. But I'll post my Lord's release to the International Forum, noticing all of them. Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon, General Counsel at the Pentagon. And like I said, I already sent this notice out. I already sent that notice out yesterday. I've been up. Haven't been able to get sleep. I got this notice. I found this on there, so I drew up this notice. I sent that out. I'd already been working on the Lord's release in full, and so as soon as I sent this out, fuck it. I'm going to send this out, and we'll work with it. So Pentagon's already gotten my notice. The world has already been informed of my notice. So I think I'm going to shut my page down, guys. Not actually shut it down. I'll still be posting, but these are going to be the last two posts on Facebook. Everything else, I'm going to my other forums. You want to follow along? Follow along. Otherwise, I'm done putting this information out and nobody having any will to support it. Everybody wants to jump on Chris Hauser's bandwagon and do the 1099s, or even John Kennedy French. I don't care. See, you're not supposed to be doing that damn paperwork. If you're doing that paperwork, you are in fact a contract officer issuing warrants. I don't like warrants. They're war rants. It's known as Battle of the Forms, and you're ranting on war. It's all babble. I don't care how much experience you got in it. I don't care if it's Taza Doc. Been doing it for 10 years and very successful man. And don't get me wrong, this is not any disrespect to any of those guys. I love them all. You're all great guys. You're doing a great job in what you're doing. But I don't urge anybody to follow after them doing them forms. Book of Enoch, chapter 69. Verses 8 through 11. Book of Enoch. Enoch. One of them books they took out. Along with the Book of Thomas. I also urge everybody to read the Book of Thomas. But here we're pointing out Book of Enoch. chapter 69, verses 8 through 11, where it talks about the angel Penemu, one of the 200 angels that came down, a third of which influenced men in an evil way. And Penemu seems to have been one of those and taught men how to write, which is what we're not supposed to be doing. Because men, as men, we are created just like the angels, and we are meant to be able to transmit as transceivers spiritually, not manually. That's why I hate having to write this. We've been so caught up in the cognitive dissonance and stuff that we're forced to write in these modern times in order to be able to express ourselves. Because, like I said, 98% of the income taxes are paid voluntarily. That tells me 98% of the people are caught up in the cognitive dissonance of this, and the other 2% are the ones controlling them. That tells me very few, and not even a marketable, a marked amount of people could be put up as a statistical percentage that are actually spiritual. It's sad. It tears my heart up. This is not the way we're supposed to be operating. We're not supposed to be going around charging each other shit. And this is what I'd like to point out about this fictional trust. Even with John Kennedy French, when you talk about being able to do these 1099s in their proper way, and you have to have your foreign situs trust and your domestic trust set up. Listen, people, if you got to depend on somebody else being involved in a trust, then writing it down and trusting them, then you're trusting the wrong motherfucker. For every word of God is pure, and he is a shield unto him who put their trust in God. No other trust do I have. None. You can write your bullshit down and try to explain to me how I need to write it down to express that trust all you want, but I don't know it. I can't know it, because I only know the trust that I have. Anyway, think about that. And if Andrea Dreyer gets this, understand, Andrea. It's just like Chili DeCastro when I call him a chump. You want to go around calling people names? I'll call you a dumb bitch. It's the same thing as Dreyer Andrea. It's just a name. But if you want to call me your neighbor, I would much more appreciate that. In the meantime, if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless. Have a great day. Bye.